it it sounds weirdly official. I don't know that there was a better name for, to describe this group of investigators. I've been on this task force with Lon Strickler, and he covers a lot of that stuff, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit, if he had received some sighting reports from that area, probably describing whatever devil-winged creature you're talking about. But as far as my own personal experience, I have not. I am unfortunately unaware of that Arizona creature.
Now, do you think this stuff is mainly folklore, or do you think that something like the Mothman or creatures like that could exist? But if they exist, why don't more people see it more spread out and more often? It's just kind of like a sparse here and there type of reporting.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's the $20,000 question, right? So, do I think there's something to it? Well, I will say this. I believe that there's something unexplained about these sightings. And what I mean by that is I think that not every sighting can be explained through mundane means with the information we have. So I guess if I could talk a little bit about the weird flying humanoid sightings around Chicago and Lake Michigan briefly. So if people aren't familiar, around the springtime of 2017, reports started filtering out of Chicago of weird bat-like flying humanoids. And so, the initial 3 reports actually went to MUFON, and then after that, because those reports were picked up by several different sites, reports started filtering into Phantoms and Monsters and UFO Clearinghouse, and then actually eventually us at the Singular Fortean Society after I started following the story. And so I think probably what is going on, long story short, and I really mean that unironically, because we've got dozens and dozens of sightings, and I couldn't possibly go through all of them. And so as the case has evolved, since that initial spate of springtime sightings, I have done my best to do my due diligence, and what my research so far has shown is I think that initially the sightings in the spring of 2017, at least many of them, and many of the sightings that occurred after that, in that flap around Chicago, were most likely misidentified birds. If I had to guess, if I had to put money on it, I would say some kind of heron. Now, there's 2 kinds of heron that are very good likely suspects in that area. So for Chicago, you've got black-crowned night herons, and you've got great blue herons.
No, I got to ask you a question. How big of birds are they?
Well, now, if you're talking about a black-crowned night heron, you're looking at, 2 feet in length with a 4-foot wingspan. If you're talking about a great blue heron, you're looking at 4 feet in length with like a 7-foot wingspan.
That's pretty good size.
Now, right? Like that, honestly, they are often described as looking like flying dinosaurs. Like, they look like pterosaurs, these great blue herons. And honestly, now I know that one of them is called a night heron and the other one is not, but they can both be seen at night. And while a good number of these sightings have taken place at night, certainly not all of them have, and frankly, a good number of them have taken place during the day, in the afternoon or early evening, when it wouldn't be unusual at all to see a great blue heron. Now, one of the
Okay, we're starting to drop out again.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, no problem. You must be
can you hear me
pacing.
okay, Gary?
Yeah, you must be pacing again, correct?
No, I swear I'm sitting right here. It's
Okay.
something in Minneapolis that is doing this.
It could be that big UFO that's being reported right now, right over your hotel.
And I'm missing it, of course.
Yes.
Go figure.
Hey, isn't that the case though? I mean, I've been on a couple weird things, where I was not paying attention. I was off doing something and everybody else saw something. And then I go, what? I didn't see anything. Well, hey, I wasn't paying attention. Well, you never know.
That's true. Well, it's something that I preach a lot to people, who want to have some sort of weird experience is situational awareness. It's a lot of it is just paying attention. But I guess back to my point with the birds is, when it comes to herons, you've got a lot of these reports that came when you would expect to see a great blue heron. We're talking in the afternoon and the early evening and stuff. And a lot, probably the main question I get is why, springtime 2017? What was so special about that time that, all of a sudden people would start to see, these birds? It seemed dubious. But the fact is, actually, due to the fact that their wetland habitat has been shrinking consistently, over the years around Chicago, combined with climate change, which has been, driving large migratory bird populations further north every year. It gets them going north earlier. It gets them staying north longer. And the reality of it is, between 2009 and 2016, the number of roosting black-crowned night herons in Lincoln Park, Chicago, actually went from 24 mated pairs to 300 in those 7 years. From 24 pairs to 300 in 7 years, right before people started, reporting these sightings. That can't be a coincidence,
Well, it tells you that since there's so many more of them, there's a lot more chance to see them, isn't it?
Well, that's exactly my point. And now I don't want people to think that that I'm saying this is all bunkum, because now, trust me, Gary, there are plenty of these cases where they're very weird. And if you believe the witness, and in a lot of cases, I don't have any reason not to believe them, you can't explain it with a large bird sighting. But I will tell you this now, I think what has happened is these, this natural situation of increased herons in this area has drawn attention, or enough attention, of the people who have actually experienced something weird, who previously didn't think they had any place to report it, and they're sort of coming out of the woodwork now and talking about this stuff. So let me give you an example. These, like I said, these sightings started coming in springtime of 2017, but since then, I've got people actually relatively recently. So I was talking to this guy from Indiana. He lives in a small, rural town, maybe I think it's 100 miles east of Lake Michigan. It is Oakland City. And he was telling me that he, in 1987, first encountered what he described as this large black creature that flew over him as he's taking this nighttime walk. And that in and of itself isn't necessarily unusual, but he went out of his way to tell me about this thing's glowing red eyes. And so I think, most people who have an understanding of a lot of nocturnal animals, especially birds, will recognize that, sometimes eyeshine can be red. But when when he was questioned about that, he didn't have a flashlight. He was, out in the middle of rural Indiana. It's not like there was a street light or anything. So there really wasn't any direct or ambient light source that could account for something like eye shine. So, if you're taking him at his word and having spoken to him, I have no reason not to, then somehow this thing had luminous red eyes, which obviously is something that exists out of out of normal human experience. And so he actually went on then to recount the fact, as he says, that that since then, he would occasionally encounter this thing, on his nighttime walks. And I actually asked him, I was like, well, I didn't want to lead him on, so I didn't ask him if he was scared initially, but that's what I was thinking, of course. And so I just asked him. I was like, well, how do you feel about this? Like what do you feel? And he just said that he felt like he was lucky that it happened to him. Like he was unnerved by it, but more than anything, he was just sort of grateful for the experience.
I don't know. I think I would have been scared at that point because you don't know if it's going to dive down. Did he describe how big it was or anything like that? How big a bird roughly and feet or anything?
Sure. Why, honestly, yeah, he didn't have good, metrics as far as that's concerned. It could have been anywhere, obviously, that was discussed, but, like from just his eyeballs could have been a wingspan of 6 to 8 feet. But, honestly, Gary, if you're looking at something at night, I mean, who knows? And 6 to 8 feet could be 4 to 6 feet, could be 3 to 5 feet. It's really, really difficult for people to judge those kinds of measurables just by eyeballing it at night with very little light.
Well, yeah, you have nothing to compare it with. So, I mean, yeah.
Right.
But if it flew over your head, I mean, you could pretty much get the idea, like, well, gee, that's as big as a man or bigger, or a drawer.
Man size
yeah.
was about, like what he was describing. So again, you got to take it, sort of for what it's worth, I suppose. But I think more than anything, that serves to illustrate that because of the misidentifications of large bird species, all of a sudden we have people, regardless of the veracity of any of their claims or what kind of truth value you want to place on that. We have a lot more people coming forward with historical and even ongoing, sighting reports, which to me, as an investigator, is really, really interesting. It's just sort of funny how it all worked out. It's almost oh, good.
Well, it sounds to me too, because maybe the population of the birds have increased. Maybe they're out, at nighttime. That's probably when they're looking for their prey, rabbits and mice and whatever. I don't know what type of their diet is, because I'm not familiar that much with the bird. But
well, herons, they eat exclusively fish. So herons are going to be, well, and cranes too, like anything in that sort of like really huge migratory bird that you're going to see anywhere in the Midwest. They pretty much exclusively live in wetlands. So herons specifically like anything close to a river, floodplains, stuff like that. But they all eat fish. So they're not ever going to dive down on their prey. They've got really, really long legs, And so sort of what they do is they'll land